Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to give you my review of Thor, Love and Thunder, the latest entry in the MCU. I think we're in phase 4 now. This thing seems to have like 100 phases, but we're in phase 4 as far as I know. Anyway, I went to see it last night, and I'm going to give you the basics of what happened in it and then tell you what I thought of it. So as the movie begins, we come across GORR. And he's walking through the desert, or a desert, carrying his daughter, whose name is Love, to what I guess is some kind of a holy shrine or a holy area, so that he can pray to his god, Rapu, to heal her because she's sick and she's dying. Now, we don't know how she got sick. We don't know any of the circumstances of this, but it just kind of is. And he's trying to save her life. But when she dies anyway, he's called to the god-killing sword called the Necrosword by a very briefly seen otherwise godly entity. And he uses it to kill Rapu. And he vows to kill all gods. While this is happening, Thor is hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's a really funny sequence where KORG is telling a bunch of kids the story of the space Viking, and he's narrating what happened during this time when Thor is with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And at one point he's on a planet and he's trying to help some guys get their temple back from someone that's invaded it, and he's fighting with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but at a certain point he kind of goes all Thor and kind of just single-handedly takes out a bunch of bad guys in a very funny, exciting way, but he accidentally destroys the whole temple instead of saving it. But the people are thankful anyway, and they give him a couple of screaming goats as a prize, which make this really awful sound. And he basically takes them aboard the Milano because he's traveling with the Guardians. But then after leaving the goats with the Guardians, he decides to go his own way, and he and KORG depart. Now, the reason he decides to leave is because the Milano receives a distress call from all over the place that, has to do with this GORR guy killing all these gods. And one of the calls comes from Sif, who says that she's been beaten by him, but that his next target is New Asgard. New Asgard, of course, is now on Earth, and it's like a Ren fair, basically, for the Norse mythology. It's kind of weird. But anyway, he makes his way to New Asgard. Now, at the same time, Dr. Jane Foster, Thor's ex-girlfriend, who has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, also arrives at New Asgard in hopes of seeking medical treatment. And it turns out that Mjolnir kind of calls to her, I guess you could say. And when she's looking at it in a display case, such as it is with all its parts fragmented out, it reforges in her presence and bonds itself to her. Thor then arrives in New Asgard as well, just as GORR starts attacking the town with shadow creatures from the Shadow Realm, and there's some cool fight sequences. Of course, Valkyrie is there fighting as well, and of course, Jane shows up wielding Mjolnir like a total badass, and Thor is surprised to see her. But they team up, and KORG is there as well, and they're fighting GORR. Now, they thwart GORR in his attempts to do whatever he was trying to do, but he escapes, and he kidnaps a whole bunch of New Asgardian children. So they realize they have to get the children back, and they travel to Omnipotent City. Now, I've not heard of this before. I don't know if it's a thing in Marvel, but it's apparently like a bigwig god hangout. The big gods are there. Zeus runs the place, and they're going there to try to raise an army to take on this GORR guy who's got this god-killing sword. So of course there's shenanigans that take place there, some of what you saw in the trailer, but Zeus is unwilling to help, and he actually has Thor captured. And so a fight breaks out, and Zeus injures KORG, breaking him down to like a face. And then in anger, Thor impales Zeus with his own thunderbolt. After after even offering to just take the thunderbolt to use it against GORR if Zeus didn't want to commit bodies or whatever to the fight, which Zeus also declined. Valkyrie steals the thunderbolt during their escape. They then travel to the Shadow Realm to try to save the kids. But this, of course, was a trap, and the whole point was to get them to go there so that GORR could try to take Stormbreaker, which I guess is the key to enter a place called Eternity, where the first person to ever reach the center gets to ask the god there, or the being there, for whatever they want. And I guess this is because Stormbreaker can travel on the Bifrost, which I thought Mjolnir could do as well, so why wouldn't you just want to steal that? You know, either or, why is he specifically after Stormbreaker? I didn't get that, but that's probably me not understanding something about the MCU. Anyway, of course, his wish is that he wants to destroy all the gods. He even manages to overpower Thor's group and steal Stormbreaker. He then uses it to open the portal to Eternity. Valkyrie is badly wounded in the fight, and Jane comes out of the fight all drained of her energy from having used Mjolnir, which I didn't understand. In other words, she has cancer, so she's like in a bad way, but then when she's using the hammer, she's like a superhero. There's nothing wrong with her. But then when she lets go of the hammer and turns back to Jane, she's still sick, which I can understand. But they were trying to say that part of the reason she's even sicker and in fact can't heal from the treatment is that the hammer drains her life force, which, okay, I get that. It gives something, it takes something, but why just refrain from ever putting it down? And when I say putting it down, she's not holding the thing in her hand the entire time she's in the Thor outfit. It's like hanging off her belt or whatever. So I don't understand what this business is of putting it down. Like, she gets it knocked out of her hand in the battle, and that's okay, fine. But like, why wouldn't you just always wear it and just be healthy forever? And if it's draining you, okay, but you're still Thor. Like, would it at some point get to be so much that you wouldn't even be able to be, Thor? I didn't really understand that. Anyway, at this point, they say, or Thor tells her, what's happening, that it's draining her, and that if she uses it even one more time, it could even hasten her death from cancer. And he says, look, I don't want you to pick it up anymore. I'm going to go take care of this. So he goes to the Shadow Realm alone because Valkyrie is hurt and KORG is just a face. When he gets there and finds the kidnapped Asgardian children, he uses them as his army to fight GORR and the shadow monsters by imbuing whatever weapons they could find with the power of Thor on a temporary basis. And this sequence is really, really cool because one of the kids, of course, is Heimdall's son, Astrid, who goes by Axel because he likes Axl Rose, which I think is just Taika Waititi doing a self-insert. But anyway, this sequence is really cool. The kids are fighting with like sticks and rocks, and one kid is fighting with a stuffed bunny, but it's imbued with the power of Thor. So it was really cool to see these kids kicking ass, and really funny to see the kid use the bunny. So yeah, that was a really cool sequence. Jane does eventually show up because she senses that she's needed, or she feels like she's letting him down. She doesn't go. It's not really clear, but she does go and join the fight. And between the two of them, they end up destroying the Necro Sword. It's actually a cool sequence when it actually breaks and then the pieces are absorbed by Mjolnir so that it can't be reforged. The thing is that Thor wasn't able to stop him from opening the portal to Eternity with Stormbreaker. So he walks into Eternity. But before he can make his wish, Thor tries to stop him, and he says, you don't have to do this. You don't have to kill all the gods. You know what you could do. You could bring your daughter back. While this is happening, Jane is basically dying. And he says, but she'll be alone, and she won't have me because I'm dying, because apparently the Necro Sword does the same thing as Mjolnir. It drains you in exchange for giving you the power to kill gods. So he's going to die, and he doesn't want his daughter to be alone, so he's hesitant to wish for that. He just wants to wish all the gods dead. But Thor says, if you're going to kill all the gods and I'm going to die, I'm going to choose love. I'm going to go be with Jane in these last moments rather than waste my time dealing with you. So that convinces GORR to wish his daughter back to life, which occurs, and Jane then dies and her body dissipates, a la the Thanos blip, into wherever. GORR ended up asking Thor to take care of his daughter before he died. All the kids return to New Asgard. Valkyrie and Sif begin training them to fight as warriors, while Thor, who now has Mjolnir again, carries on his life of continuing to go on adventures and help people. But now he's doing it with Love, who is now wielding Stormbreaker. And I guess she kind of has godly powers when she's using it. I guess that makes sense. Or because she's back from the dead, I don't know. But she is now his counterpart, hence the title of the movie, Love and Thunder. And that's where the main movie ends. Of course, there were credit scenes. There's one in the middle of the credits where we see Zeus recuperating from his injury. He's not actually dead. And he's talking to his son Hercules about how they have to kill Thor. In a scene at the end of the credits, Jane arrives at the gates of Valhalla, where she is welcomed by Heimdall. So that's the story. Oh, and it says Thor will return, and I think that's cool because this one was good. Now, I say that having not been a huge fan of the Thor movies. I thought the first one was okay. The second one was whatever, mediocre. I thought the third one was funny, but stupid. It was enjoyable to watch because it was funny, but I was like, really? This is a Marvel movie? I didn't like it. This one I could kind of tell from the commercials, the trailers, was going to be good, and I did, in fact, enjoy it. I found myself thinking that it was far too silly because the comedy in it is parody level at times. And there's nothing wrong with a superhero parody film. There's nothing wrong with, doing a parody of Thor and all that stuff. But it should be left to the parodies, right? Not the main MCU storyline. So I don't think it took away from it at all, but it's like, it stands out because that's not normally what happens in the MCU movies. They don't parody themselves a great deal throughout the movie, but in this movie there's a lot of that self-parody stuff and scenery chewing stuff for comedic effect, and I wasn't sure that they should have made a movie that way in the MCU. Another sort of critique I would make of this film is that I don't think they did very much with the villain, with GORR. They make a big deal about how he's a god killer and he's got the necro sword and he's going around and killing all the gods and it's a terrible thing and we have to stop him. And that's fine, but you actually only see him kill one god at the very beginning of the movie. By the time they get to him, he's apparently killed a few gods, but you don't see any of those fights. You don't see him doing any of what he's doing. You don't see him elaborate on his rationale. You don't see them even try to talk him out of it where he sort of says, no, I've lived my life worshiping gods and they've done nothing for us and I'm going to kill them and then the world can... I mean, he pays lip service to that whole thing, but he doesn't really go into it, and he's just sort of like a boogeyman that is just a MacGuffin to drive the rest of the plot, which is Thor and Jane and the comedy stuff. So I wasn't sure that was a great choice. But it's enjoyable to watch. It really is. So I like this movie quite a bit. There are a couple of things I wanted to highlight specifically. So in the beginning, when KORG is telling Thor's story, and he gets to the part where he talks about how Thor spent a lot of time meditating, trying to figure out who he is, the song that's playing in the background is that one that goes, who can say why your heart grows? Where your love flows, only time, or whatever the hell the words are. And I thought that was funny. One of the things that you see in New Asgard, because like I said, it's kind of like a Ren fair where the Asgardians live, but at the same time, it's like a tourist attraction. And so one of the attractions is a play about the events of Thor 3. And they've got somebody playing Thor, Loki, Odin, and then Thor's sister, whose name I forget, and that's Melissa McCarthy. And they're really hamming it up, and it's done with like the goofiest practical effects of like a school play, and it's just hilarious. So that was a cool part. Russell Crowe plays Zeus in this movie in a very entertaining way. I wouldn't say it's believable, like he he plays it again like a parody kind of thing. They wrote it for him as a parody, so you're seeing like a parody of Zeus, like a parody version, or a sort of a slapstick version, or a goofy version. But again, it's very entertaining, and he does some silly stuff. You know, he makes Thor naked, and when he comes down the stairs, he does like a little dance. But he's very good. It was very funny, and I enjoyed him in the film. And of course, the bunny thing that I mentioned earlier was hilarious. And that was one of the moments that I especially liked. Now, there was some heart in the movie. They did mix in some heart, some serious moments where Thor is serious, and he talks about his feelings for Jane. And it was good to see them get back together. There's a whole sequence where they explain like what happened to their relationship. So that's in there, and that was cool to have the blanks filled in. And there were some funny moments there. And they do reconcile and sort of become a couple again before she dies. So I thought that was cool. She kicks ass in this movie. She looks fantastic. So I loved that. And it was just an entertaining movie. I'm looking forward to the next one, especially if she's going to be in it, which it looks like she will. We're going to get more Russell Crowe, it would seem, and we're going to get Hercules. So that should be interesting. But if I had to rate this on balance out of 10, I'm going to say a 7, because like I said, there was some stuff about it that made me go, should that really be in an MCU movie? Should they really be treating the character this way? And some of the stuff didn't make sense. Like if Thor could imbue any old object with the power of Thor for a short period of time, and anyone with the power of Thor for a short period of time, why did they have to go to Omnipotent City to build an army? Why didn't they just do that with the other citizens of New Asgard? Like, I didn't understand that. Like, why did they do that? That was kind of weird. But anyway, it's an enjoyable film. Certainly, I think a more worthy film than the last one, and better than the second one. So I'm looking forward to the next entry. For now, I'm going to take off. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, I wish you peace and long life.